Welcome to Consults Over Coffee. This week's episode, is it a bike shop? Is it a grocery store? Is it a cultural reference point? Is it a small business that's an important part of the community? It's all of the above. Welcome to Outpost Richmond, a unique, successful, multifaceted, and diverse business. I'm joined today by owner and founder Braden Govoni, who's here to discuss how Outpost Richmond came to be and what it's become, and also how they're helping to promote healthy living, inclusiveness, and just having fun. I think you're really going to like this. Well, welcome to another Consults Over Coffee. I'm Dr. Michael Jones, and I'm joined today by my friend Braden Govoni, who is one of the owners and founders of Outpost Richmond, which is a local bike shop / bodega, I guess is probably the best way to describe it. Is that a fair description?
I think it's a fair description. Yeah, bike shop.
It's certainly a unique shop sitting on the corner of Forest Hill and Westover Hills Boulevard. It's Forest Hill and Westover Hills, yeah. And you guys have been there, what, 5 years now? Longer?
Yeah, we officially opened towards the end of 2015. So yeah, we are now in our 6th year, I guess, or
wow.
Yeah, within our 6th year. So yeah.
And you were what, part owner and kind of managing one of the Carytown bike locations, the one in Carytown, right?
Correct. Yeah.
I first met you.
Started that with those guys in 2007 and then left in 2015.
Yeah. So what was the impetus to start Outpost Richmond?
Well, I mean, after leaving Carytown, I wasn't really sure I wanted to stay in the bike industry for a time. I still have a lot of ideas about what bike shops can be, like what my personal vision of a shop was, like where things, didn't live up to my expectations or didn't align with what I was doing previous. And I decided, well, I want to give it another go, try a different approach, and reached out to a couple friends that I thought would have, a pretty similar philosophy towards doing it. And we decided to take another stab at it.
So your shop is clearly, the model that you have is clearly very different than a traditional bike shop.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's in some ways.
Yeah, in some way. Well, it's like Bike Shop Plus, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, in certain ways, yeah. At face value, it's obviously very different because we have a lot more going on than just a bike shop. The bike shop that kind of underpins everything, though, I think in a lot of ways is very traditional. The first bike shop I worked at, I started back in 2001, was a shop called Rowlett's that had been around for almost 100 years at that point.
Oh yeah.
And they had evolved from like the early 20th century model of like general store, hardware store, sporting goods, etc., that sold bikes, to over time most of the other things kind of falling by the wayside and kind of refocusing on bikes and I mean, towards the end still canoes and some boat stuff. And it was very much, I think, or at least what I think of when I think of like a family bike shop. You had this shop that had multiple generations of customers, partially just because it had been around so long, but people that maybe got their bike there when they were a kid and then grew up and maybe you're still riding, maybe you're not, and then have kids of their own, buy their own bikes. And it was very much that approach of selling bikes to a pretty broad range of riders. There was a racing component within that. Myself and some of the other people involved did actively participated in bike racing and put on races. So we had a racing club. So there was this multifaceted like bike shop that was, I think at the time, still very much trying to be this all things all people approach, and not really exclusionary. And so I've definitely looked back and kind of referenced that a lot when I was starting Outpost, that's looking at wanting to kind of continue with that trend of making something that is inclusive as possible.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of different people that are going to get into cycling for a lot of different reasons. Now more so than ever. And we wanted to be kind of a resource and a hub for all of that, not just for, the more dedicated, elements within, cycling, be that like bike racers or just like your, year round, like committed bike commuters. There's so much going on, just in cycling and bike riding, especially, in the Richmond area, that a big part of it was creating this thing that wasn't going to be exclusive, wasn't going to be off-putting. Very much, recognizing that a lot of bike shops, especially high-end bike shops, can be very intimidating places to new customers, to people new to riding bikes, that are not just looking at it as like a sport. These are spaces that are traditionally like white male dominated primarily, and maybe somebody coming into cycling who isn't going to fit that demographic, whether it's race, gender, or even just like body type, all of these reasons that they're going to feel might feel excluded, might feel othered by this space. I looked at that kind of head on and seen like, oh man, I've been doing this a certain way for a long time, and I was the architect of a space that was very much continuing that somewhat problematic problematic approach. So hold on, I wanted to make something that wasn't that's something that if somebody walked in the door, they didn't want it to immediately be like this intimidating or even like adversarial, kind of interaction, which is something that like I saw happening like time and time again, like personally being complicit in that, and taking a step back and saying, I think this is the wrong way. I think it's the wrong way to do it, and I don't want to do it that way anymore. So starting over, and doing the grocery and beer and wine thing, I think is a key component in that. And the thought process, like when we were starting to kind of hash out the idea and how things would lay out and how we wanted to approach things, the idea is that basically like your average bike shop, regardless of whether they're high end, low end, service focused, e-bikes, whatever, most people that are going to come in that store are only going to come in a couple times a year. Even your most like hardcore like bike racer guys.
That's true.
I mean, they're maybe they're coming to the shop, maybe they're coming in 12 times a year or maybe 20 times a year. But most people, the vast majority of bike shop customers, this is a brief interaction a couple times a year at most. And as a result, it's a space that may not be, that's not going to be as familiar, it's not going to be as comfortable. Whereas like for a small grocery store, a small market, like some of the other local ones like Little House Green Grocery or Stella's or whatever, these are spaces that customers come into a lot of times like two to 5 times a week. So it's a very familiar, comfortable place. If you're coming in and buying a 6-pack or buying some eggs or buying some chips or salsa or whatever, and you're seeing the same people multiple times a week over and over, it's going to be a much more comfortable experience just at the baseline. And by kind of like making that, kind of creating that little business within a business, our comfort level just immediately becomes higher for most people. We're their local resource for X, Y, and Z, and we also do this bicycle thing. And a lot of our customers, maybe they don't ride bikes. That's fine. They come in and they're like, oh, it's weird that there's a bike shop in my local grocery, but whatever. But where we're located, A lot of people are active, right by the James River Park system. A lot of people hike or kayak and bike, run, etc. So for those people, like the first reaction is like, oh, that's weird that there's these two things in the same building. But then they think about it for a second and they're like, but I like both of those things, and why shouldn't they be in the same building? And it's, it's worked out really well because people come in over and over and over, and then, and are comfortable here and get, we have all these great, like, amazing customer interactions, and just, a lot of just people on first name basis. And when they, when they need a new bike or a rack for their bike or just some new tires, it's not like, oh, gotta hop in the car and go over to the bike shop and, go talk to somebody that, may not be the same person I dealt with last year. It's, for whatever reason that it may not be the best thing. Well, I'm going there anyway. I'm going to pick up my 6-pack and I'm going to pick up my chips and I'm going to pick up some cheese or whatever. And I'm going to grab a tube and some chain lube and the new tire and the whatever while I'm there. And it's just this like normal interaction, no baggage, no weird preconceptions.
Yeah, no, and it's funny because I looked at it, in two ways, and one is it's inclusive rather than exclusive, which I think feels better to most people. I mean, the world of competitive cycling, you got to work pretty hard. You got to put a lot of miles and a lot of time in to be able to race a bike and to race a bike well. And so it almost establishes its own little club of guys who do the work and who worked hard to get there.
Yeah.
And so it's a tough sport. It's a tough sport. And so there is a little bit of an attitude and a big threshold to entry if you want to focus on the competitive cycling world, but there's a lot more to riding a bike than just racing a bike.
Absolutely. I love bike racing, and it's not for everyone. I mean, there are a lot more reasons to ride bikes in a different way than there are to race bike. There's a lot of other fun stuff to do on a bike. Arguably, more fun, I would say, most of the time. I mean, even a lot of the best times I've had riding bikes have not been while racing bikes. I've had a lot of fun racing bikes, but I've had a lot more fun not racing bikes.
Well, that's the thing. There's a lot that you can do. And for me, as a physician who walks around and looks at sort of the crisis of obesity in this country, who looks at, a lot of self-inflicted medical problems, largely related to being sedentary, eating poorly, it just makes sense to me. You know what? You can ride up the street. You can ride to the park. You can, especially in Richmond, there's so many places that you can get out and ride safely. You can get on the Capitol Trail.
Yeah.
And I just see that as such a healthy alternative for people that doesn't have to be competitive. If you want to take it in that direction, you can take it in that direction. If you just want to go throw your bikes on the car and go ride around Colonial Williamsburg or ride down the Parkway to Yorktown, whatever you want to do, there are all these options, but they're all healthy options. And so, I see that as just a real positive. And then I also see, frankly, as from a business model, I think why wouldn't you want a bike shop that appeals to as many people as possible?
Yeah, I mean that's the plan, right? I look at it like I want to strip away the competition. I want to strip away all of these preconceptions of like, oh, this is a green thing, this is a healthy thing, this is all these, because all of these things, like, they're all good. Yeah, it's like there's so many different people that can interact with a bicycle and get joy out of it, and there are all these different body types and all these different types of riders that I think even this idea of kind of getting tunnel vision as this is this healthy lifestyle. This is this thing that is about like improvement and and bettering yourself and bettering your body and bettering the planet. I think even that attitude is like, it has more to do with like,
you're making it a cause rather than right. And
thing. It's just it's a thing we should do, and it's a thing we should enjoy. And to your point, whether it's racing a bike, whether it's riding the Capitol Trail, whether it's riding with your kids, whether it's just riding to the park, it shouldn't like there shouldn't be anything beyond that people feel like that they have to, that they're obligated to do, or that they're opting into. It's not like, oh, I ride bikes to be healthy. I ride bikes to save the planet. I ride bikes to be faster. It's like, these are all cool. Like, these are all good reasons.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, man, I don't want to talk about any of the reasons, because it doesn't matter, because everyone has their own reasons. And if I say cycling is about being healthy, well, then if somebody's like, well, maybe, I'm not healthy enough. Do I feel excluded by cycling because my body type is this and not this?
Right.
Or, I live my work or life where I am in life. Like, I can't ride a bike to work. It's not feasible for me. So am I, because I have to commute in a car? Like, does that, is somebody saying, oh, well,
am I a bad person?
You're a big jerk to commute in a car. You're not riding, whatever. Screw all that. Like, let's just ride bikes. Let's just have fun. Because, like, I mean, if we can't have fun, at least in part of our lives, then
what's the point? Well, and I think that's, again, it gets back to the idea that Outpost Richmond, really, I see it as something that's built on inclusivity rather than exclusivity.
Absolutely.
And the vibe, and Debbie and I have often talked about this when we go in there. It's like, this is a neighborhood shop, in a very traditional sense. And you mentioned kind of going back to the old Rowlett's model. And that's sort of what this is, which is, this is kind of a locally owned business that's integral to the community. You want to come in here because you need something, you need a bike, or you need your bike worked on, or you need something for your bike. Or do you want to come in here because you need groceries? You want to come in here and just shoot the breeze for a couple of minutes and look around. I mean,
I want people to be comfortable. I want it to be a positive experience, because it's so easy for it to not be a positive experience.
Well, and I just think there's so much value in a small locally owned business as opposed to big box.
Oh yeah.
I mean, and that's what I like about it. We walk in your shop and it feel good, and people are having a good time. The staff is friendly. There's cool stuff to look at if you're, whether it's bike stuff, whether it's groceries, whether it's locally sourced RVA stuff. Right. I mean, and that, to me, that is not the standard experience in a bike shop.
No, definitely not. I mean, yeah, bike shops are, when they're just a bike shop, yeah, it's this very like transactional thing. I mean, there are plenty of bike shops where their core repeat customers will say, oh no, it's not a transactional thing for me because I fit into their target customer base, and I go there and I do the group rides and I do whatever, the racing or whatever. And this is all cool stuff too. But there's so many people that ride bikes that's not them. That's not that. And they are, and the non-racers, the non like high-end the non-cyclists, right?
Right.
That's the majority of people riding bikes. And I mean, I want my shop to reflect the broader, I don't even like the word cycling. I want the broader bike riding.
Yeah.
Community. I mean, even community is a weird word. I mean, just if you like, I go out and ride, like, I ride the Capitol Trail once or twice a week, generally in like, a few mile increments with my daughter. And I look, I'm looking at who's out there in different parts and seeing who's on bikes. And I look when I'm riding to work, seeing who's on bikes. And when I'm walking in a park, in the James River Park system with my kids, like I look at who's on bikes, and like, it's not like white dudes on fancy bikes. I mean, they're there, of course, and generally they're the ones that may not be acting in the most, friendly, inclusive manner. And why? Yeah, I don't need to cater to that. Like there's so many, there's shops to cater to that. And a lot, it means a lot of our customers are going to fit the demographic, and that's cool too. I mean, I'm in that demographic, and if I didn't own a shop, I'd want to be able to get certain products, whatever. But like, to me, it's like, I want what we're doing to reflect who's actually out there on bikes, and whether that's in the bikes we sell or the products, whatever, who we hire, you know, what our staff, what they look like, what their backgrounds are, you know. This is really important stuff that if you're not being cognizant of, if you're not looking at that and saying like, what do we look like to our customers? What do we look like to people that are other people that want to ride bikes? How can we make ourselves more inviting, more familiar? How can we take steps to not be gatekeepers for sport, right?
Yeah.
That's I mean, that wasn't even like, I mean, that was underlying the initial philosophy, but just in the past like 5+ years, just watching the overall demographics of riders, people on bikes in Richmond, just literally change before my eyes, has been this like incredible thing. It's incredible to witness. I mean, I've been actively riding bikes and actively in the bike industry for basically 20 years at this point. And like for the first 10 years, there wasn't a lot of change happening here. And like just in the last 5 years, there's this huge shift, and it's a beautiful thing to see. It still has problems. I mean, there's still issues. I mean, I look at like, you know, even when we have bikes to sell, there's like, well, yeah, to be viable as a business, to survive it, to be financially viable, like we can't sell certain things, right? We can't sell below a certain price point. It's just, it doesn't
Right,
work.
doesn't work.
Right? And even looking at that, I'm like, man, this sucks. You know, if we get calls, somebody's like, oh, I'm looking for a bike. And you're like, you know, okay, what do we do? Especially now when we have so much Slipper stuff, and we kind of cut to the chase. We're like, well, what's your budget? What kind of ride do you want to do? And if somebody's like, well, yeah, I'm looking to spend like $300, I'm like, I can't do that. I don't have that. That's not viable for our model. And
right. Well, and I think you guys have done a pretty admirable job of that. And again, I mean, it gets back to, not only does it seem like, at least from my vantage point, that it is a socially cool thing to do. You know, especially right now, God knows, man, there's enough divisiveness in this country right now that frankly, anybody who's being inclusive, what a breath of fresh air that is, you know. And you guys are doing that. And you know, I think that's just really, that's great. And it's also a smart business model. You know, I mean, and I don't think that certainly wasn't your motivation, but I mean, the fact is that, you know what, if you're going to open a business, you want as broad a customer base as you can have.
Well, to a degree. I mean, there's definitely certain elements that I don't have any time for. I don't have any patience for. And I think like there are, I mean, if you are trying to exclude people, you know, from it, you know, whatever, you know, I mean, not just riding bikes, just access to anything we all need, you know, to just being able to share spaces safely, then I don't have time for you. I'm not interested. You know, I don't want your money. If you disagree with some of the core beliefs and core tenets that I hold, and that I think most of my staff holds, you know, politically, then that's fine. We're not the shop for you. We're not gonna hide what we believe either. You know, we're not gonna, like, I would like to think that we have been open and honest about not just our beliefs and politics within the confines of riding the bike, but beyond that, because like, I mean, everything is political. At the one hand, you want to be like, well, I want everything to be chill, and I don't want politics to be injected, you know, into everything in like the classic sense. But at the same time, man, everything's political. Everything's political. Just getting on a bike and riding to work is political. It's a political action.
Sadly.
And a lot of times in a good way, you're interacting, like, what does bike infrastructure mean? There's all these political implications to bike infrastructure, right? There's all these political implications to, just not driving a car, so we try, and I try and be honest. We try and be open with that, and if somebody's like, man, if that's not for them, you know what, that's not for them. That's fine. Yeah. I don't have any time for like some, just like, I don't know, just some like, sexist, racist, homophobic, transphobic, whatever. I don't want your money. Like,
well, and as a business owner, that's your choice.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that's the way of the world.
Yeah. I mean, I worked really, really hard to get to this place where I can kind of like, I can do what I think is best, but but more importantly, like, I can do it. Like, I have business partners, but I don't answer to anyone, I answer to my family, I answer to my staff, but I don't answer to anyone. Like, ultimately, these are my decisions to make. And that's that basically saying, like, if somebody is going to act in a certain way that is like harmful to like my staff, or harmful to my family, or harmful to the people I care about, get lost, get out of here. We're doing just fine.
So so we're kind of out of time. And this may be kind of a good way to kind of segue, because you guys have done very well through the pandemic.
Yeah.
And certainly folks in Richmond would be hard pressed to find a place that's more inclusive and open to folks, I think. And professional, right? I mean,
most of the time.
Yeah. I mean, but so if folks are looking to find you, how do they find Outpost Richmond?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of it, is still very much word of mouth. I think most bike shops survive to a degree on word of mouth, having that new influx of customers saying, like, whether it's the bike racer, entry in,
right.
Oh, I'm getting into this, and I'm, my friend does this, I'm going to try it out. What shop does he go to? Or, in your neighborhood, you're like, oh, I saw the guy down the block, he does this. Like, these are stories of customers like, oh yeah, I got into it because my friend recommended it. But on top of that, we're really lucky because we are a local grocery store, and that's like the secret sauce, right?
Yeah.
It's like people, we have picked up bike customers over and over and over that were grocery customers first. So like they were already our customer, but now they're buying this other thing that, that we also sell.
Geez, man, strength and growth through diversity.
Right.
Heretic, you.
Very intentional, but has vastly exceeded, what I hoped it would do. And
so folks listening to this, though, you're on Facebook, right? They can go cruise your Facebook page. What is Outpost Richmond?
Yeah, Outpost Richmond. Yeah, Facebook. It's Outpost Richmond on Instagram. And we don't do as much with Facebook as we do with Instagram. I think the Instagram, that facet of their platform, I think just works, lends itself better to what we're doing.
And for the really old folks, you're on the internet as well, right?
Yeah, you can find us on Google. Yeah. I've got really awesome, talented people that work here, and basically keep that presence that, like, on the phone or the desktop maybe, keeps it, I think, relevant and doing a good job of kind of reflecting where we're at. So I think people can go to those platforms and get a good idea of like what the heck we're about, and hopefully are going to see that and say, oh yeah, this is the shop for me. I want to go check these guys out.
Well, it's certainly been the shop for Debbie and I for the last 5 years. So
appreciate it.
Yeah, man. Well, that's another Consults Over Coffee. It was Braden Govoni from Outpost Richmond, and check them out. It's probably the most unique and professional bike shop you'll find in town. And we'll be back next week.